The bell over the jewelry shop door chimed, sharp and delicate, like the sparkle of the diamonds inside. I stepped in behind my mom, the soft scent of polished wood and perfume hitting me. She didn't look back once, just marched straight toward the glass counters like she owned the place. "Stay close," she murmured, her tone clipped. "And please, don't touch anything. You'll scratch it and can't afford to pay." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The words landed like a slap, sharp, public, humiliating. A couple standing near the display turned, the woman hiding a smirk behind her manicured hand. The man glanced at my simple outfit, faded jeans, a soft beige sweater, and chuckled under his breath. My mom didn't notice, or maybe she did and didn't care. She was too busy chatting with the saleswoman, pretending she belonged among the glittering necklaces and golden bracelets. I stood silently, my reflection trembling in the glass case. The diamonds winked under the lights, small worlds of luxury I had learned to admire from a distance. My mother always said I was too simple for refinement. "Girls like you belong in kitchens, not boutiques," she'd remind me whenever I tried on her old jewelry as a child. "Can I help you ladies today?" the saleswoman asked, her professional smile faltering slightly when she took in my scuffed sneakers. "Yes," my mom said proudly, tapping the counter. "I'm looking for something elegant for my daughter's sister-in-law's wedding. Maybe something classic, real diamonds only." I looked away. My stomach knotted as her words twisted the truth. Her daughter's sister-in-law, not her daughter. It was invisible in her stories. While she tried on bracelets she couldn't afford, the shop buzzed with soft piano music. I drifted to a quieter corner where a silver locket caught my eye. It wasn't flashy, just simple, with a faint engraving that read, "For the one who waited." My fingers hovered over it. I didn't touch it, but my mom's voice cut across the room anyway. "Emily," she snapped. "I said don't touch anything. Do you want me to be embarrassed again like last time?" The customers looked up again, some whispering, others giggling. My cheeks burned. I wanted to disappear into the marble floor. I whispered, "Mom, I didn't even." She waved her hand. "Oh, please. You don't belong in places like this. You think being married suddenly makes you rich?" The shop went quiet. The saleswoman froze mid-step. I swallowed hard, but before I could respond, a deep, calm voice cut through the silence behind me. "Actually," he said, "she belongs anywhere she wants to be." The air shifted. Every head turned as my husband, Ryan, walked through the door. He wasn't the type to draw attention, but in that moment, he might as well have been made of sunlight and confidence. His tailored navy coat brushed against his wrists as he moved, his presence commanding the room without trying. My mother blinked, startled. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" He ignored her completely. His eyes found mine, softening when he saw the redness around them. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I nodded, biting my lip to stop it from trembling. He looked toward the counter. "She didn't touch anything," he said evenly to the clerk. "But even if she did, she has every right to." The saleswoman stammered. "Of course, sir. I didn't." Ryan stepped closer to the display, his gaze sweeping across the shimmering rows of rings, necklaces, and bracelets. Then, with a calm smile, he pointed at the entire front case. "Wrap everything for my wife," he said. For a moment, the world froze. The giggling woman dropped her phone. The clerk's jaw went slack. Even the piano music seemed to pause mid-note. My mom blinked rapidly, color draining from her face. "Ryan, that's absurd. You can't just..." He turned to her, his tone polite but cold. "You told her she doesn't belong here. I'm just making sure she never feels that way again." A hush fell over the room. I stood motionless, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. The same display my mother had guarded like treasure was now being emptied, necklace after necklace, bracelet after bracelet, folded into velvet boxes with trembling hands. Ryan looked at me again, his expression softening. "You've spent too long letting people decide what you deserve," he said quietly. Not anymore. My mom opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in my life, she looked small. Not cruel, just stunned by a truth she never thought she'd have to face. When we finally walked out of that shop, the paper bags gleamed gold in my hands, but that wasn't what made my chest ache. It was the silence behind us, the silence of every person who had laughed moments before, now left staring at the door we just walked through. For once, I wasn't the embarrassed one. I was the woman who had just rewritten every cruel thing ever said about her. The ride home was silent, except for the faint rustle of the velvet bags resting on my lap. Each one felt heavier than it should, not because of what was inside, but because of what it meant. My mom sat in the back seat, staring out the window, her reflection pale and unreadable. Ryan's hand rested loosely on the steering wheel. His jaw was tense, his knuckles pale against the leather. "You want to tell me why she talks to you like that?" he asked quietly, eyes fixed on the road. I swallowed hard. "It's complicated. Try me." The words were gentle, but they carried weight. I looked out at the fading city lights, my chest tightening. "She's always been like that." Growing up, my sister was her pride. I was just extra. She used to say I was too quiet, too plain, too average to ever make her proud. Ryan didn't interrupt. He just listened, and somehow that made it harder. "When I married you," I went on, "she told everyone I was chasing your money. She said women like me don't get lucky. We just get pitted." I saw his grip tighten slightly, but he stayed calm. "You're not here because of luck," he said firmly. "You're here because you earned it. Don't let anyone rewrite your story." His voice had that quiet conviction that always broke through my defenses. My eyes stung, but I forced a smile. "You always know what to say." He reached over, his thumb brushing my hand. "That's because I've watched you work every day. You built our life, Emily. You made it real." When we pulled up in front of my parents' house, the porch light flickered like it couldn't decide whether to welcome or warn. My mom got out without a word, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. I followed her up the steps, unsure whether I should speak or just let the silence swallow us. Inside, the house smelled like old perfume and bitterness. She placed her purse on the counter with a thud, then turned to face me. Her expression was calm, but her voice wasn't. "You embarrassed me in there," she hissed. "You made me look like a fool in front of everyone." I blinked. "You embarrassed me, Mom. You humiliated me in front of strangers again." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't exaggerate. I was protecting you. You think people don't judge? I was saving you from being ridiculed." I laughed bitterly. "You were the ridicule, Mom. They laughed because you told them to." For a long second, she said nothing. Then her voice cracked, not loud, but raw. "You think I don't know how hard life was for you? I kept you grounded because I didn't want you dreaming of things you couldn't have. Dreams destroy people, Emily." I froze. That wasn't anger, it was fear. Her hands trembled slightly as she continued. "When your father left, I had nothing. I had 2 mouths to feed and no one to call. Your sister learned to impress people. You learned to hide. I thought if I toughened you up, you'd survive." I stepped closer, voice shaking. "You didn't make me strong, Mom. You made me small. Every time you compared me to her, every time you told me to stay quiet, I started believing you." She turned away, blinking fast. "You think your husband's money changes who you are?" Ryan's voice came from behind us, steady, low, cutting through the tension. "No," he said. "But it shows who you've always been. You just never looked close enough to see it." Mom flinched slightly, realizing he had been standing by the doorway the whole time. He walked forward, setting one of the jewelry bags on the table. "She never needed any of this," he said softly. "But I wanted her to have a moment that erased years of people making her feel small." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it was real. My mom's eyes glistened. "I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," I said gently, my voice steady now. "You meant to keep control. But I'm not the same girl you could shame into silence anymore." Her lip trembled. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, looking like someone who had finally realized the cost of her pride. I picked up the silver locket I had admired earlier and opened it. Inside was a tiny inscription I hadn't noticed before. "You were enough, even when no one said so." I turned it toward her. "You can't take credit for who I became, but you taught me what I'd never do to someone else." Ryan reached for my hand, his fingers warm and sure. "Ready to go home?" I nodded. But as we turned to leave, my mom's voice stopped me. "Emily," she said quietly. "Wait." I turned. She was holding one of the smaller jewelry boxes, her hands shaking. "You forgot this." I took it, not expecting what was inside. A delicate bracelet, the one she'd tried on first in the shop. She gave a faint, sad smile. I wanted that for you," she whispered. "Guess I just didn't know how to say it right." I didn't answer. Some wounds weren't meant to close in one night. But as we left, I caught her reflection in the window, alone, tearful, watching us walk away. Maybe she was finally realizing that love doesn't sound like control, it sounds like respect. Ryan started the car, and I leaned back in the seat, the locket warm against my palm. The city lights blurred outside, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running from her voice. I was driving toward my own. The following weekend, my sister Chloe invited the entire family to her engagement dinner at a downtown restaurant, the kind of place with chandeliers made of crystal and waiters who looked like they were afraid to breathe too loud. I almost said no, but Ryan's voice in the car stayed with me. "You've spent too long shrinking yourself for people who enjoy watching it." So I went. When I walked in, Chloe's smile froze mid-flash. Her fiancé, Noah, stood beside her in a crisp suit, his arm around her waist, looking like he'd practiced that pose for photos. My mom sat at the head of the long table, already in hostess mode, surrounded by her favorite audience, relatives who loved gossip more than dessert. "Oh," Chloe said sweetly, "you actually came." Ryan's hand brushed mine under the table. "Of course she did," he said with a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mom clapped her hands. "Everyone, let's toast to Chloe, the pride of our family. She's marrying into one of the most successful real estate families in New York." Applause. Laughter. Glasses clinking. I smiled thinly, keeping my head high. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here for closure. But sometimes, fate doesn't wait for your timing. Halfway through dinner, Noah stood up and cleared his throat. "Before dessert, I just wanted to thank my soon-to-be in-laws for accepting me into their family." And he paused, glancing at his phone on the table as it buzzed. "Excuse me just a second." He stepped aside, answered, and frowned. The color drained from his face. "What do you mean the deal fell through?" His voice rose slightly, panicked. "No, the buyer confirmed this morning. She signed off herself." The table fell silent. Everyone watched. Ryan's phone vibrated too. He looked down, then slowly turned it over to show me the message on screen. It was from his assistant. "Acquisition complete. The deal went through. The new majority buyer is registered under your name." My stomach dropped. "Ryan, what did you do?" He leaned closer, his voice low. "You said Chloe's fiancé's company handled your father's old property, the one your mom sold under your name years ago." I looked into it. Let's just say the paperwork had a few loopholes. Across the table, Noah's voice cracked. No, that can't be right." Mom frowned. "What's going on?" Ryan stood, calm and composed. "What's going on," he said, "is that my wife just bought controlling shares of your future son-in-law's company." You could have heard a pin drop. Chloe's fork clattered against her plate. You what?" I looked at Ryan, then at the stunned faces around me. "I didn't plan this," I said softly. "But maybe life finally decided to balance the scales." Mom's face turned ghost white. "You're joking. Tell me you're joking." Ryan placed the documents on the table, clean, legal, final. "Not a joke," he said. "Every signature verified." Chloe's voice trembled. "You ruined us." "No," I said, my voice steady for the first time in years. "You ruined me a long time ago. All I did was stop pretending I deserved it." No one spoke. The clinking of silverware had stopped. Even the music from the restaurant faded behind the thick silence pressing around us. Ryan offered his arm. "Ready to go, Mrs. Matthews?" I smiled faintly, meeting my mother's stunned eyes one last time. "Yeah," I said. "I think I've stayed quiet long enough." As we walked out, whispers followed us. But this time, they weren't laughing. They were stunned. Awed. Maybe even a little afraid. Outside, the night was cool, the city lights reflecting off the car window as Ryan opened the door for me. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the forgotten daughter. I felt like the woman no one could ignore anymore. The next morning, I woke to a knock at the door, soft, hesitant. Ryan was already gone for a meeting, and the golden light spilling through the curtains made the house feel too quiet. When I opened the door, my mom stood there. No makeup, no pearls, no sharp tone, just her. The woman who used to stand behind me at every school play with crossed arms and a judging stare now looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I nodded and stepped aside. She walked through the living room like she was afraid to touch anything, her eyes darting over the walls lined with framed photos. Our wedding, our home, the quiet life Ryan and I built without her approval. "I saw the news," she said finally. "It's everywhere. They're calling you the silent buyer who saved a sinking firm." I didn't answer. I poured her a cup of coffee, the way she used to when she was pretending everything was fine during my childhood. She sat, fingers trembling around the mug. "I didn't come to fight," she said softly. "I came because I owe you something." My heart beat faster. "You don't owe me anything, Mom." "Yes, I do," she whispered. "An apology." The words stunned me. She took a breath that shook. "I raised you to survive, not to dream. I thought the world would eat you alive if you were too kind, too soft, too hopeful. I didn't realize I was doing the world's job for it." My throat tightened. Her eyes filled with tears. "When you walked out of that restaurant, I saw it in everyone's faces. The pride I should have had years ago. The respect you earned yourself. I was so busy protecting my image, I forgot to protect my daughter. It wasn't anger that filled me. It was something deeper. Sadness, maybe. The kind that comes from finally understanding someone too late. I used to beg for that, you know?" I said quietly. "For you to just say you were proud of me." She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I know. And I just didn't say it out loud. I thought keeping you humble would keep you safe. But all it did was keep you scared." I sat down across from her. The years between us finally visible, not as distance, but as consequence. "I'm not angry anymore," I said, voice steady. "I just don't want to live in silence again." She smiled through her tears. "You don't have to." We sat there for a long while, two women finally meeting halfway, not as mother and daughter, but as survivors of their own pride and pain. Before she left, she reached into her purse and placed something on the table. It was the silver locket, the same one from the jewelry shop. "I had them engrave something new inside," she said softly. When she left, I opened it. The old words for the one who waited were gone. In their place was a new line, delicate and simple, for the one who became. I pressed it against my palm, tears blurring the edges of the letters. When Ryan returned that evening, I told him everything. He listened quietly, then wrapped his arms around me. "Took her long enough," he said gently. I laughed, a real laugh this time, light, unguarded. "Yeah," I whispered. But maybe the silence finally ended for both of us. That night, I stood by the window, the city lights stretching endlessly ahead. For the first time, I didn't feel like the girl standing outside the glass, watching everyone else live. I was the woman on the inside, free, seen, and finally enough. And the world, this time, stayed silent for all the right reasons.